What is up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be doing another reaction video because the last one I need better content, basically, because the other one, my first reaction video, technically, well, I don't know, but it did not do so well. The audio was messed up and I recorded on my phone, and like the quality was not amazing, so we got to redeem ourselves. We're going to be reacting to a different video. It's called "What is the worst tornado in history was really like?" What the worst tornado in history? Oh, I think I read that wrong. I think I said like, "What's the worst tornado?" Okay, never mind. This is uploaded by Brightside. So if you want to go check out the channel, it'll be in the description. If you want to check out this video by them, it'll be linked in the description as well. But anyways, let's watch.
June 29th, 1764.
I gotta turn up the volume, it's kind of hard to hear.
Seemed like a regular day in one small picturesque town in Germany, Waldeck. Residents were in church. Little did they know that a powerful storm was about to hit the area. It wasn't just an ordinary storm. It was a strong, swirling tornado getting closer and closer. It was an F2 tornado at the beginning, strong enough to uproot trees like oaks and beeches.
Yeah, like, the weaker the tornado is, the less damage it does. Well, like, it depends on like how long it tracks for. Because like, that's interesting. In Germany, that's where the worst tornado was, like, ever. And it was in Germany. I always thought it was like the March 18th, 1925 tri-state tornado. I think that's the most, like, the tornado that most people think that is the worst. But I guess not.
But as time went by, it grew and became more powerful. It even picked up two children on its way and threw them into a lake. Something strange happened too. The water level in the lake rose and then quickly retreated. Leaving the lake behind, the tornado struck a house, tearing off the roof and knocking down the walls. Then the tornado changed direction and headed east-northeast, increasing its intensity to F3 level. That's when something fascinating happened. A possible twin or satellite waterspout merged with the tornado along the shore of Lake Luzin. It was like two tornadoes coming together. It got wider and stronger.
Yeah, that is what tornadoes can do. If they go like how do I explain this? If there's like two tornadoes and they like go like against each other, like go like merge together, you'll like go wider, or the more debris it picks off, the more wider it get, but I guess that can happen as well.
So it started snapping and uprooting solitary oak trees, flinging them 115 feet into the air. It left behind a barren landscape, removing crops, grass, and even topsoil.
Man, I need YouTube Premium. I hate ads. Well, I guess it makes sense. So like that's where like these big YouTubers can get their money, right?
People couldn't even read or write very well, let alone use devices that could predict a tornado. This one was so strong it destroyed houses, barns, and even uprooted trees. Such a terrifying thing
to see. Back in the 1700s or 1800s, there was like no such thing as like phones. Like that was not invented yet. And like I don't think computers were a thing either. Actually, they weren't until like the 60s or something. Yeah, like there was like no way to tell like when a tornado was coming unless you like looked up into the sky or something.
But there was something special about the church people were in. It had strong stone walls, so they were safe inside, even though everything outside was getting destroyed. They didn't even realize how lucky they were until later. With winds estimated to be over 300 mph, it was unstoppable.
What? 300 miles per hour? That rarely even happens. Like, I think the last time, I think the strongest tornado on this planet, I thought it was like the 1999 Moore tornado with like the winds peaked up at like 302 miles per hour. I think everyone should be aware of that.
The tornado traveled a distance of 19 miles and stretched to a maximum width of 0.6 miles. A raging storm threw tree branches so high, people believed they ended up in the atmosphere. Another strange thing about this tornado was that it occurred during a dry storm. There was very little rain reported, but the storm still managed to make such a mess. It even produced large hailstones, some as big as 5.9 inches in diameter. Just imagine chunks of ice that large falling from the sky. These hailstones cause significant damage to crops and properties.
Yeah, fun fact, the biggest hailstone was, I think it was like 2018. This is like the one that I'm like known about, but like, I think the biggest hail on this planet dropped in like Argentina back in like 2018. I think it was the largest hail. Maybe there's like another one that's larger. I don't know.
And everything else that was outside at that time. After the storm passed, one scientist, Gottlob Burchard Gensmer, studied the damage and talked to people who had witnessed the tornado, only to realize this was one of the strongest tornadoes ever recorded in history. It reached F5, the highest rating on what's called the Fujita scale.
Yeah, some people think that there's gonna be like a new Fujita scale. I don't know. I think I might. I don't know. We'll see in the future.
Which measures
Because
tornado
technology
strength. It took an hour for the madness to stop. Back in 1925, people in
Okay,
northeast Missouri
this year, this is the year where that big tornado happened. It was on the 18th of March. This year. This is like I I'm not even gonna tell you how big it was or how bad it was. Let the video tell you. Unless if it does tell you.
didn't have an organized tornado warning system either. It took them by surprise when one day, in the early afternoon, they saw a tornado forming in that area. At first, it was a small one that briefly lifted off the ground. But as time went by, it started growing into a massive monster. Meanwhile, in West Frankfort, Illinois, some miners were working deep underground, about 500 feet below the surface. Suddenly, the power went out, and they knew something was wrong. They quickly started climbing up the shaft to get to the surface. When they finally made it, they were in for a terrible shock because of the devastating consequences of this giant tornado.
They should have probably stayed down there. If the power is out, you should probably like stay up there just for like a couple seconds and then go back down. Because that's staying up there for longer periods of time is not a good idea.
Tornado didn't even stop there. It kept on making a mess as it traveled a long distance. It plowed through the land for a whopping 219 miles,
Yep,
all the way from near Redford,
219
Missouri to the east of
miles.
Princeton, Indiana. It moved at a crazy speed of 73 miles an hour. In one town, Murfreesboro, Illinois, the tornado wiped out a staggering 100 blocks of the town, plus another 70 blocks ended up destroyed by fire.
You won't believe how many people died in this tornado.
In another town, Griffin, Indiana, not a single building was left standing. The tornado got weaker only at 4:30 in the afternoon. This tornado, known as the Tri-State Tornado,
See?
really made history as the worst and longest-lasting tornado ever recorded in the United States. In April 1965,
However,
people
is it the worst tornado in on this planet? Who knows? But yeah, that is like the worst tornado in the United States ever. There has never been a tornado worse than that.
in the region of the Great Lakes started complaining about this weird heat. The forecast showed no storms for that area. It was because of thunderstorms sweeping across the upper Midwest of the United States.
Wait, it
These
was like
storms were
hot
insane and
then?
so powerful they created 51 tornadoes in just 12 hours. The states of Indiana, Ohio, and Michigan ended up being hit particularly hard. Something unfortunate happened during this time. All this caught the
Oh,
forecast
is this the year where the Palm Sunday tornado outbreak happened?
team, the National Severe Storms Forecast Center in Kansas City, Missouri, off guard. They quickly tried to send out warnings to let people know what was happening, but many people didn't hear the announcements because there were no outdoor tornado sirens at that time. Additionally, a lot of TV and radio stations didn't regularly broadcast weather alerts. Power was gone.
Yeah, so this is like the era where like we started to get like a little bit of technology in and like people started to get warned about it.
And telephone lines didn't work, which meant many towns were completely cut off from communications. People couldn't receive the warnings because they didn't have access to electricity or working phones. One spring day in 1900,
Okay. This year, 1974, I'm not gonna say too much about it, but there was Two days you have to be they're like very important in that year. April 3rd and April 4th. And you'll see why.
1974 was especially hard because of severe thunderstorms that unleashed a series of powerful tornadoes across 13 states in the United States. These tornadoes lasted for 16 hours, and they ranged from weaker F0 to the most powerful and destructive F5 ones.
Yes.
At one terrifying moment, there were 15 tornadoes touching the ground at the same time. One lasted for more than 2 hours, and two others were swirling around each other like dancers. This was another big lesson, after which some changes in tornado warnings were made. In those days, weather forecasters
1974 will be a year that Americans will never forget. At least I hope so.
could only warn people about a tornado if they had seen one with their own eyes, which was mostly too late. April 26, 1989, at around 6:30 in the afternoon, the sky above one district, Maniganj in Bangladesh, turned dark and ominous.
This, by the way, is the most deadliest tornado on this planet. April 26, 1989. I think it was April 26. I don't know. I think I might be misleading. I don't know. I forget which year it was and forget which month and date it was.
The tornado began its journey from one point, Daulatpur, and moved swiftly eastward, Saturia, Maniganj Sadar. People living in that region had already been facing a severe drought, and little did they know there were even worse scenarios coming. The storm was fierce, stretching about 10 miles long and 1 mile wide. It covered a relatively small area, but it still caused enormous damage. It tore through the land and blew away buildings, thousands of trees, strong and rooted for years, and everything else in its path. The countryside of Marsala in western Sicily is really beautiful. But it wasn't so stunning on December 8th, 1851. Two fierce tornadoes suddenly swept across the land, leaving nothing but chaos. As they moved, they brought along heavy rain and hailstorms, causing even more damage to the already vulnerable farmlands. One town, Castellammare, had an amazing harbor with plenty of ships, and it suffered great damage. The news of this devastating event reached far and wide, even making its way to the Illustrated London News.
What?
The outbreak in Oklahoma from 24 years ago, May 3rd, 1999, was tough too.
This is the one that I mentioned earlier. This tornado is had the highest wind speeds ever recorded on Earth. 302 miles per hour, which is like 486 kilometers. In Canada, we use kilometers and not miles.
Just one stormy day caused enormous damage from Texas all the way up to South Dakota. At least 45 tornadoes touched down, and Oklahoma was hit the hardest with an F5 tornado.
Yep.
The story seemed familiar. What first seemed like a small twister quickly grew into a massive force that, at one point, measured 1 mile in width. This one ripped asphalt from roads, peeling it away in layers like fragile paper. It tore the vegetation away and even wrapped roofing materials around power lines. NASA scientists studied the area using satellites. They realized it would take between 10 to 20 years for the vegetation to fully regrow in the region where the tornado left nothing but muddy, barren land.
Pop up any moment.
Oklahoma is in a pretty unfortunate spot when it comes to tornadoes. Take 1947 as an example.
They don't... How dare you? I'm joking. But yeah, the wind speed was 302 miles per hour. 302.
The Woodward tornado got named after the city it had struck. This monstrous tornado was massive. It reached 1.8 miles in width, and it raced forward at an incredible speed of around 50 mph. Before reaching Woodward, the tornado had already caused a lot of mess in other towns along its path. But it was in Woodward where it unleashed its worst fury. Without any warning, it struck the city at 8:42 in the evening. Unleashed its worst fury.
That's the only house left standing. This house right here. I'm not even gonna question it.
Without any warning, it struck the city at 8:42 in the evening, catching the residents by surprise. Communication with the outside world was cut off, leaving families uncertain about the fate of their loved ones. As if one tornado isn't enough, some areas get struck by a series of them. In 1908, an outbreak of tornadoes swept across the eastern part of the United
Yeah, I don't
States,
think I know this.
from Texas to Georgia and then northward from Oklahoma to Tennessee. At least 34 tornadoes touched down. Nature showed no mercy. Buildings were torn apart, and once thriving streets were reduced to rubble. The Fujita scale measures tornado strength based on two things: the speed of the winds and the amount of destruction caused.
Yes.
F5 tornadoes are the strongest, most destructive ones. I mean, some people talk about F6 tornado with winds that could blow at over 300 miles per hour. If this one was passing by, you'd definitely know how Dorothy felt. Luckily, F6 exists only in stories, and Oz is the last place you are likely to end up at.
So yeah, I mean, like, back in 1974, there was a tornado that was given a preliminary F6, but they later, like, dropped it to F5 because they couldn't find any damage that would support an F6 rating. Anyways, I hope you guys liked this video. This video was pretty scary. It was kind of interesting to watch, I'm not gonna lie. It was much more interesting and less funnier and way more scary compared to that fail army video that I did. It was, like, really bad at like a reaction video. But anyways, if you want to go watch this video, the original link will be in the description as well as the Bright Side channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.